So Amy, if you want to reach out to your contacts and see if they're available and let us know. And if not, we'll follow up and see if we can recruit some people.
Okay, so just to clarify, that's the lender and a broker.
Yeah, a lender and a broker. And I think, somebody that's, again, familiar with CHFA, FHA type, financing for, affordable type of units, that specialty.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Jim, is there somebody on town staff that kind of is the liaison for affordable housing with existing developers and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I deal a lot with, affordable housing issues. I mean, obviously, Maureen, the plan, everything goes through planning and zoning and Chris Edge and I, but I've dealt with affordable housing for a long time and deal with most of the development projects and did all the, applications for moratorium from the state and that sort of thing. So I'm pretty familiar with it.
Okay. I guess we should talk to you too, huh?
I'm always here, so you can ask me.
All right. Still no Jennifer? Oh, she is? Okay,
Sure.
Jennifer,
Just
welcome.
a slight technical issue with another meeting that drew my attention. I'm sorry I was not in on time at 6 o'clock.
Okay, we've gone through, Jim's given us updates on items 4 and 5. I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add. He gave us an update on how many surveys to date from the Survey Monkey, that we're getting additional requests from the senior center for more paper copies. So response seems to be fairly good.
Yeah, very, very happy with the response. I think it's a great sign. It's only been out a week. We'll evaluate where it's at again at the beginning of next week, and we may make some additional efforts in terms of distribution, may do some more direct distributions and whatnot. But we're just moving on. Ann and I are moving on the contacts with the churches and some of the other organizations as well that provide direct services to those in need. So we'll be following up myself. I do need to talk to Chris too and see what kind of response he's received from some of the efforts he's making as well. And we'll continue to make efforts to get it out there and get people to respond. So I don't know if Jim mentioned too, we are going to be looking to schedule a meeting at the senior center. We have talked to Jen about that. And just to get a perspective from the seniors, it probably will not be until after the close of the survey, but we do want to get input from them with regard to senior housing needs. So that's something else that we have added, so to give you that update. But I heard what Jim said about the community outreach sessions. It's important, I think, when we go to contact the invitees that because I am getting questions just from invitations that I have put out on behalf of other towns. They want some guidance in terms of what we're looking to get from them as far as information is concerned. Folks are a little uncomfortable. They don't want to come in and have to give a presentation. And I've explained to people, we want this to be a conversation. This is about educating the committee and educating other interested members of your community about what the needs are. So, that'll be the message in reaching out to folks on your behalf.
Any questions for Jennifer? Okay, why don't we move on to agenda item 6 then, the overview of the key demographics, affordable housing zoning regulations, and existing and approved affordable housing developments by town staff and council. Am I turning that over to you, Jennifer? Start.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Here we go. Just give me a second. Hopefully,
While we're waiting, I just mentioned, Amy, that if you can confirm, the availability of your folks, then we can like give them a time, give everybody like a 15-minute slot. So, I'm gonna plug Joe in at the beginning of the meeting. Then Ben's probably flexible. So if your folks are flexible, then we can just work between us to assign people times to, make it efficient for their schedule.
Is it a question and answer or more of like just a presentation on FHA and CHAFA?
I think it's like a, brief presentation and then questions and discussion, like as Jennifer said, have more of a dialogue.
I think 15 minutes is too long, to be honest. There's not much to say about FHA and CHAFA,
If they take less time, it's fine.
Okay, so maybe instead of, because I think it can be intimidating to ask a volunteer to talk so maybe we say up to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's their presentation and the dialogue,
Okay.
We'll allocate 15 minutes, and if they finish sooner, we'll give them a reward.
Perfect.
Okay, can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Turn her volume up at all.
Okay. Volume up, is that what you indicated?
For you, you're not very loud. I don't know if
Okay.
you can get your mic closer.
Sure. Is that better, George?
A little.
Okay. Have my volume on max.
Okay.
Is the volume on max on your side? Because that could be part of the issue, because my volume's fully up.
I don't know. Okay, we're checking it.
Just double check that, because that could be the issue.
I mean, Jim was coming across fine.
Okay, let's get ahead. So in terms of demographics, I'm going to just that's what I'm going to start off with tonight. As I'm just going to go through some of the slides that were put together. Jim and the consultant Maureen principally worked on this this PowerPoint. So we'll go through some of the demographics, and then we're going to talk about Berlin's record of affordable housing and where things stand. So in terms of some of this information is going to be familiar to the folks who attended the informational session. We're going to get a little bit further along, though, as far as the demographic information is concerned, and then we're going to revisit again Berlin's status. So in terms of population change, this is one of the critical things, of course, to look at in terms of planning is population. So Berlin's population grew at a steady rate in the 30 years between 1980 and 2010, but then growth has slowed since 2010. In terms of those in the age range of 45 and older, Berlin's population is growing with the exception of ages 80 to 84. And then population shrunk or grew at a slower rate in those below the age of 45. With regard to projections, Berlin's projected population change from 2020 to 2040 is depicted in this next slide. And these are projections that are conducted by DECD, so the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. Berlin's population is expected to contract in the age cohorts between 5 and 29 years old and between the ages of 45 and 64 years old. And again, that's between the years of 2020 to 2040. And they put a little disclaimer on this of projections being conducted in 2017, and it may not reflect recent demographic shifts.
The other point on that is that it doesn't really reflect, those projections don't reflect the large number of additional apartment units that have been approved and not yet built in Berlin. Excuse me.
Again, this go ahead. Is there a question?
No.
Okay. This is just another view of, again, the population projections with regard to the Hartford County area and the state. So Berlin is projected to experience more growth than Hartford County and the state in those aged 65 and older. And then the population between the ages of 40 and 64 is expected to contract more than Hartford County and the state. And it's in that same time frame, 2020 to 2040. And here's another look at that. The population change is expected to be negative through 2040, so directly inverse of Hartford County's, which will remain positive through 2040. As far as density is concerned, population density is comparable to Connecticut's, but is much lower than Hartford County's. And with regard to race and ethnicity, Berlin is less racially and ethnically diverse than the state and Hartford County. But it is more racially and ethnically diverse now than it was in 2010. And Connecticut experienced a greater shift in diversity over the same period. As far as resident age is concerned, Berlin's population is significantly older than both Hartford counties and the states. And the poverty rate is substantially lower than both Hartford counties and the states. Now we're going to look at household size and type and then move on to income. The average household size in Berlin declined from 2.67 to 2.48 between 2000 and 2018. With regard to household type, Berlin has fewer householders living alone, so single person households, than Hartford County and the state. Berlin has a greater share of households with someone older than 60 years old than Hartford County and the state. And Berlin has fewer households with someone under 18 than the county or the state. So there's a difference there as well. Berlin's median household income the local median household income is higher than both Hartford County, so the area median income, and the states. It's 35% higher than Hartford County, and it's 29% higher than the state. Berlin has a higher share of households and income brackets over 100,000 than both Hartford County and the state. And Berlin also has a lower share of households and income brackets below 35,000. Also looking at household income, in this slide, Berlin has a higher share. We're going to move on just to school enrollment and then student race and ethnicity as well. School enrollment in Berlin's public schools has consistently decreased over the past 10 years. This follows the same trend as school enrollment in the state. I know that's been a conversation that has been had on the school side for budget side for many years now. In terms of student race ethnicity, Berlin's public school enrollment is less diverse than Connecticut's. Now for housing supply, 79% of Berlin's housing is single family detached housing. Housing with 20 or more units comprises 5% of the town's housing. Housing permit activity between the years of 1990 to 2020. Housing permit activity is at a 30+ year low over the past 8 years. Average housing permit activity is 22 units per year over the past 8 years. And this compares to an average of 99 housing permits per year between 1990 and 2012. With regard to multifamily rental development, 530 housing units in multifamily residential developments have been approved or are under development in Berlin since 2014. 556 housing units in multifamily residential developments were built in Berlin prior to 2013. Built and approved developments include a mixture of market rate, mixed income, age restricted, mixed income, and age restricted affordable housing. So we're going to just move up to the top here.
So
I'm gonna
Jennifer,
talk a
does
little
that
bit
include,
more about that.
Jennifer, does that include Diadio's current investment of 200 units over on the Berlin Turnpike?
It does not.
Okay, because that's pretty substantial given.
No, I
talking
don't believe
500.
that number, right, Jim, that number does not include Diadio's.
I'll have to check. We're updating the numbers. We're actually, just to say, we're doing an existing conditions report. And so we have a draft from FHI. We were checking some of the numbers. So we expect beginning of next week, we'll send you an existing conditions report. And if it needs to be updated by Diadio's, it will be.
I thought I heard Jennifer say it also planned, so that's why.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, everything's a snapshot in time. So, we
I
keep
don't know if that would also include, and they haven't been taking any action on it, but the workforce housing over by Northeast Eversource also. But I don't.
Yeah, we're gonna the new data will give you what's been built, what's been approved, and also what's in the pipeline, what's applications pending. So applications pending, we have 550 Berlin Turnpike and the infill development by Pat Snow. So we'll have all this data.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have some additional information in this PowerPoint as well, with regard, and the reason why I answered that I don't believe that it does is because of this information that was included as well. So as far as recent housing development activity from 2014 to the present, the town has approved 8 multifamily rental developments, including 4 that have affordable units. There's 530 dwelling units in total. 112 are designated as affordable. 50 of these units are age restricted and affordable. And then 16 units are complete, including 4 affordable units, which are at Newport Center. And then there's 16 units that are under construction at 9 Steel Boulevard. 11 multifamily rental projects include affordable housing units. The Berlin Housing Authority has Marjorie Moore Village at 40 units of affordable senior housing, Percival Heights at 30 units of affordable senior housing. And then there's 143 Percival Avenue, which is an approved 50-unit affordable senior project that is not underway as of yet. Metro Realty has Orchard Ridge, a 120-unit mixed income senior project with 96 affordable. Stonebridge has a 194 unit mixed income senior project with 155 affordable. Fieldstone Crossing is a 72-unit affordable project, and River's Edge, a 16-unit affordable project, and then Deming Ridge, an approved 88-unit mixed income project. 27 units are expected to be affordable. Merritt Properties, this is continuation, has Sage Pond Place as well, an 84-unit mixed income senior project with 77 affordable. Newport Center, mixed income, mixed use building owned by Newport Realty Group with 16 units. I said that before, I think already. 4 affordable. 404 Berlin Turnpike, an approved mixed income, mixed use project with 200 units, 40 affordable.
And that's Peter Diadio's project that George was asking about.
Yes, yes, that's the Diadio project. And here's an overview of 550, 554 Berlin Turnpike. Again, pending mixed income, mixed use project with 160 units, 32 affordable. And just in terms of the town's history, in terms of denied housing projects, there was the Baker Residential Broadview project proposed of 384 townhouses at Berlin Turnpike and Meadow Lane, Orchard Road. That proposed 116 affordable units. It was denied because the project was proposed in an industrial category zone. There was an appeal on that, and the town was successful on appeal. And then there was Kensington Grammar School renovation and new units that were proposed by Metro Realty. And lastly, there's the Rio Vista Proposal text amendment change to allow the concept plan was a 319 unit development with 30% affordable as an 830G application, and that is in litigation. And this was also included, the town also owns and leases spaces at a 16-unit trailer park on Deming Road.
Those units are not counted as affordable because they're not deed restricted.
The town does have other, as Jim is aware, does have other units that are affordable that are similarly situated, meaning that they don't have a deed restriction on them. And so the town is not getting credit for them. We have had some conversations about how to potentially address that. And that's something that we are working on, trying to reach a resolution with regard to that. Just moving on to the age of housing issue, one of the things that I think is important and that needs to be part of the conversation as far as what's to come in the future is to address how you're going to deal with the fact that, there is some housing that is getting quite a bit of housing that's getting up there in age. And one of the issues is that if those housing units are more affordable in terms of your housing supply, the expense that to bring them to the condition that they should be in is a question. So that's a conversation that a lot of the towns are having, and I'm sort of monitoring what those conversations are and potential solutions to that issue. So that's something that I expect that we'll be, as we move along in the process, we're going to be talking about more. But in terms of your demographics, Berlin's housing ranges in age with 47% of housing constructed more than 50 years ago. Only 3% of the town's housing has been constructed since 2010. So that's a big number of units that are more than 50 years old. 40% of Berlin's housing stock is valued at more than $300,000. And in terms of how that compares with the region, the median housing value in Berlin is higher than both Hartford counties and the states. So Berlin's
Jennifer,
at
how old is that data? Because things have changed dramatically in the last 2 years.
So it's indicating that it's from 2019.
Okay.
So
Probably changed since then a lot.
well, certainly there's no doubt there's a lack of supply being experienced throughout the state. I don't know, Jim, have you seen anything more recent in terms of the values? I have not.
No, I have not. We did discuss it with FHI this morning and asked them to check with the RKG, their consultant, and also we are looking for current sale data from the assessor. We have some of it, so we'll try to incorporate that into the mix as well.
So is this based on town assessment or current market?
No, this is 2019 is based on the American Community Survey as part is it's basically the census, and they update the information periodically between censuses, and that's kind of the best general source of general data that's referred to. So that's what we're using at the moment, but we'll try to kind of, as I said, try to update it with any specific Berlin data that we can.
Thank you.
So housing tenure, okay, so the issue of are people aging in place, what's going on with regard to that? Berlin has lower housing turnover than both Hartford County and the state. So 92.4% versus 87.2 and 87.1. The ownership versus rental issue. Most of Berlin's housing is owner occupied at 84%, with renter occupied 16%. Berlin has a higher home ownership rate than both Hartford County and the state. So 84.4 to 64.66. Ownership cost versus income. So how much are people spending of their income? 25% of homeowner households with a mortgage spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs. So a big number. 15% of homeowner households without a mortgage spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs. So that's 40% with and without. And at one point, I think I shared with you, there's a state statistic, 128,000 people in Connecticut spend more than 50% of their typical wages on housing. So this is a statewide issue. Rental costs, most of the town's rental housing costs between $1,000 and $1,500 or $1,499 per month. Only 15% of the town's housing costs less than $1,000 per month. Rental cost versus income. Almost half, or 49% of renters in Berlin spend 30% or more of their income on rent. Housing cost burden households. Berlin has a lower share of housing burden households than both Hartford County and the state. And this includes renter and homeowner households. And you could see those figures. Renters in Berlin have substantially lower incomes than homeowners and have a higher share of housing cost as a percentage of their income. Housing cost burden in Berlin is slightly lower than both Hartford County and the state. Berlin is one of 52 towns in Connecticut with an hourly housing wage of $23.65.
So Jennifer, I have another question, I guess, with regard to affordable housing. So the numbers that you present show, you know, housing's pretty expensive, but do we know what it is in relationship to how many people would be even eligible for affordable housing, i.e. that 80% of the median income? Because, I mean, people may be buying too much house for their income, and those numbers get factored into what you're doing, kind of giving the impression that there's a lot of affordable housing that could be needed, but it's not factoring in the guide or the criteria of you need to be making less than 80% of the median income in the town or the county.
I am not entirely sure what you're asking. So I think what you're asking is in terms of, do we have specifics as far as, I mean, we could tell you what's affordable, what's determined to be affordable based upon,
No, I guess what I was trying to get at, you're presenting a lot of numbers that say a lot of families in town are burdened with greater than 30% of the housing of their budget is in housing, okay? Which is kind of one of the guidelines relative to affordable housing, that if they're eligible for affordable housing, their housing costs cannot be greater than 30% of their income. I believe that's what the criteria is. So it's kind of painting a picture that we have lots of people potentially, or could be interpreted that we have lots of people potentially that could be targets for affordable housing. But if there's a fair percentage of those numbers, like say they're burdened because 40% of their cost goes into housing, but they make $200,000 a year and they just
Yes.
bought too much house. That's
Yes.
not real. They're not really candidates for affordable housing. So I don't
Sure.
get a good sense for the, the population that might be candidates for affordable housing in our existing population.
And I think that that's a very accurate interpretation of what you're seeing. Absolutely. So, and I don't know if Jim wants to weigh in on this as well, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about, we're looking at these obviously not just at, what are affordable owned units and what are affordable rental units. What are we're not just looking at affordable housing units, we're looking at all units, right? So we're saying exactly that. I mean, that certainly is absolutely a possibility that people are making a choice to spend beyond their needs and their means. Right.
I guess I'm getting at data in the wrong hands, construed the wrong way, is dangerous.
I think when we get we're going to get an existing conditions report from FHI, and we can certainly, which we've started to review already, but those are the types of things when you get it and you review it, certainly be happy to see your comments. I think that in terms of the renters numbers, it's pretty clear that the renters are burdened.
Right.
And the homeowner numbers, again, I think you could say that, the larger percentage of them are burdened, and that, that's again, as Jennifer pointed out, it's really less than the state. It's not like a Berlin problem. It's a, kind of universal problem. But the other interesting thing I think about Berlin is that, they're kind of elsewhere in the report, they're saying that, you have people that, let's say, have the incomes, could afford higher price houses, that are not buying higher price houses, that are buying lower price houses, and therefore pushing the people that might need those lower price houses out competing them for those units. And I guess part of my thinking on that is that just because somebody can afford a $1 million house doesn't mean they have to buy it or should want to buy it, right? So, but it's a situation where I think one of the things that I asked the consultant to look at is, like, I think it's important to, as far as home ownership. So if we have affordable units and they happen to be getting bought by people who have higher incomes, well, that's not really something that's in our control. So those are the kind of things we're just trying to, kind of fine tune. And, we happy to have, again, you, George, and everybody on the committee, when we get the report, look at those kind of issues and see, if you have questions or things aren't clear, or we haven't parsed out the data enough, and then we can try to do more.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question as well. So I'm not clear. This data is to be presented to the town at the next meeting, or is this as part of our affordable housing plan to the state? Because these numbers won't be fresh. I mean, right now, all of the numbers are coming in on housing costs for like November. They're very far behind always. They're always a month behind. So my concern is that the rental figures probably aren't fresh. I would be surprised actually if most rentals in Berlin are between 1,000 and 1,500 at this point. And same thing with just housing costs in general. Just for an example, in all of Connecticut, the average housing cost in 2021 was $247, and it's up to $309.9 just since from 2020 to 2021.
Yeah, like I said, we've asked them to refresh, update the data.
Okay.
If they can find, again, look at the sources, see if we can update the data. And certainly, at a minimum, we're going to comment that, the prices have generally gone up in Berlin like they've gone up elsewhere. We also, when I talked to them this morning, we're also talking about the rental market. And, I think particularly when you start to look at, you've got the purpose-built rental units, And then the other rental units, maybe houses or condos or whatever that are rented. So you have two kind of categories there.
Yeah.
And a lot of, basically, as we saw from the data that, in terms of certainly the purpose-built units, a lot of them aren't new and a lot of them are affordable, right? So we're just starting to get market rate apartments. And once these mixed income market rate apartments come on come online, that's going to certainly raise the rents up, the average rents up significantly. So those are the things, we may not have the data on everything right up, but we can certainly comment on those trends and expectations too.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure we're ready for the changes.
Yes, yeah, we'll try the best we can. But again, when we get the report, please, on specifics, we'd be happy to, try to update or take advantage of any information you have.
Okay, happy to do it.
So just to talk about affordable housing need, we know we've got some slides here, and then we're going to go and look at sort of the housing types. But in terms of need in Berlin, 9% of housing is subsidized. Again, this was reflected in some of the other charts too. 14% of households rent their home. 18% of housing units are in multifamily buildings. 14% of households spend between 30 and 50% of their income on housing, and then 13% of households spend more than half of their income on housing. And as I indicated before, 23.65 is the hourly wage needed to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. 8,140 housing units in Berlin based on the 2010 census. We have the 2020 number though, Jim, don't we?
Not yet.
We don't have that.
We have a projection, so we think we're going to go up about 500 units, but we don't have it. We don't have the numbers yet.
556 government assisted, 50 tenant rental assistance, 142 CHFA, USDA mortgages, 4 deed restricted. So 752 total assisted units comes out to be 9.24% of affordable. So we had that. Just head up here for a sec. This is a snapshot of the 2020 Affordable Housing Appeals List that the DOT keeps. So again, those are the numbers. And in terms of the threshold provided in the 8-30G, that the town is at 9.24%. There are only 138 non-exempt municipalities and that means exempt from the Affordable Housing Appeals procedure in the statute. And there's only one community, Weathersfield, that's at 9.52% that has a higher percentage of affordable of the non-exempt. Those 138 non-exempt. So that means that Berlin is close to meeting the state's, it says mandated in there, the state's threshold of 10% affordable housing. And I can revisit with you the statutory definition if you'd like. That is in the beginning of the PowerPoint. I will send out the PowerPoint to you when we conclude. And if you have any questions about it, we could certainly take that up at the next meeting. But Berlin's share of affordable housing has increased consistently since 2011. Berlin exceeds the statewide average for affordable housing by approximately 3 percentage points. And this is a big number here. Berlin's share of state qualified affordable housing has increased from 2.9% in 2002 to 9.2% in 2020. So just to kind of get a look at your housing types and some specifics with regard to them. So single family homes, greatest share of single family homes constructed over the past 18 years were constructed prior to 2012. Approximately 50 single family homes have been constructed since 2013. So one of the questions is, does Berlin have capacity for more single family home development? Multifamily developments. Multifamily development has occurred across Berlin over the past 2 decades. Development has been more concentrated on the north and east sides of the town near routes 9 and 15. Does Berlin have the capacity for more multifamily development, and are there other areas of town that should be considered? So as part of the land use and zoning assessment, those are the big questions, right? The status of multifamily developments, again, we've talked a little bit about the numbers, but just to revisit that. So in terms of those that are in an active state, application pending, 578 units. I think we're going to be updating that number, right, Jim?
Yes,
And
yes.
then approved 86 units. So that's going to change. And then we have under development 120 units that probably has increased as well. So those are considerable numbers. Build out analysis. A build out analysis conducted by the town identifies multiple developable properties across the town. Most or many of those properties are located on the western side of town in more rural and naturalized areas. So that's something that, you'll hear more about. Land use 2021, land use mapping is parcel based. The following land use classes are most prevalent in Berlin: public parks, open space, agriculture, village residential, low density residential, moderate density residential, and industrial. Public parks and open space comprise the largest share of land use in Berlin. So you've really made an investment in your public parks and open space with a percentage of 30%. Low and moderate density residential land uses are the next most common land uses in Berlin. There's some overviews here of or areas of what that looks like. So here's a depiction of low density residential, moderate density residential, high density, your village residential, mixed commercial and residential, so mixed use, mixed commercial and high density residential. So overall, you have 29 base zoning districts and 5 overlay zones. So there's significant planning that's occurred. Residential zoning is the most prevalent zoning type in Berlin. The share of residential zoning districts in the town, 56% exceeds residential land use, which totals 38% by 18 percentage points. And then in terms of transit-oriented development zoning, TOD, and we're going to talk about TOD as we get into the process and what the thinking is as far as planning is concerned about transit-oriented developments. But the village district overlay, the VD zone, is an overlay zoning district that covers much of the commercial district and some of the industrial district in proximity of the train station. For any development within the VDO zone or the village district overlay area, the commission has to consider design guidelines in addition to the standards of the underlying zoning district and any other requirements of the zoning regulations. So, we're going to be looking, one of the things we're going to be looking at is, has that been successful in guiding new development in the train station area? And are there changes that are needed to the VDO to better support affordable housing development? So,
Yeah, just quickly on that point to say that we just submitted a community challenge grant application last week for a project that includes additional units at Newport Center, which is directly across from the train station. It would be like an infill with additional 10 units there. That's in one of the core areas of core area 2. And if that project were to move forward, we'd have to make some modifications to the core area 2. So that's something, again, we've increased significantly the core area 1 densities, and we got the mixed use projects going. And, another thing I think planning and zoning is going to look at, and this committee can look at, is those other close in areas around the train station. Should we be tweaking some of those regulations?
So a couple of the other charts that I think are important for you to take a look at are, this is an example of the income qualifications for affordable housing in Berlin, and it's the income table that was used by Metro Realty for Fieldstone Crossing, River's Edge, Stonebridge 2, and Orchard Ridge. And it shows you, what those income qualifications are based upon the size of the household, the type of housing unit, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, and the different percentages of area median income. So it's gives you a good idea of what those eligibility requirements are. And then we also included, this was part of the public informational session as well, but we also included this little 2022 income levels and rents sheet for Sage Pond Place, which also gives you an idea of eligibility requirements. Jim, do you want to add anything at this point?
I think that, just again, commenting on these income eligibility requirements is, it's all abstract. So I think it's good to have some real numbers. And, Ben Tripp from Metro will come to the next meeting, and, he'll have specific information and you can ask him more questions. So it's good to have really a concrete understanding of what this really means.
So when I distribute, I'm just going to take down the PowerPoint at this point. Okay, you're not seeing it any longer, are you?
No.
Okay. When I distribute this PowerPoint, I am also going to send to you the affordable housing regs that the town does have on the books, so you can take a look at. I was going to go through them. I think it's a lot for you to digest. I would rather you read them in advance. We're going to talk about them as we move forward. So do you have any other questions at this point? As Jim indicated, there's more data that will be coming. This isn't it, but I think that this is a good, pretty thorough place to start in terms of getting an understanding, getting a picture of where Berlin is at as far as demographics is concerned, as far as housing is concerned, and what the town's history is as far as affordable housing. So does anybody have any questions? We've taken a few questions, few comments. Does anybody have anything else that
Jennifer,
they want to say?
I have one more. This is George Miller.
Yes, George.
Is there anything with regard looking at Berlin, which goes into the various types of rental properties, like, you talk multi-use or multi-unit use or single family or, duplexes, 200 unit apartment buildings. Is there anything that talks about, cost of construction and says, one of the things that when I was reading through some stuff today, just to refresh myself, going back, it says, like, is it even possible, like, for example, to build an affordable duplex, a duplex that would actually fall under the affordable guidelines? Is it even possible to do that with construction costs today? And it actually have a developer that would even entertain it because it's just, they can't make any money at the thing. You know, especially with what happened, you know, this law was put into effect in 2017 and a lot has happened in 2017, since 2017. I'm wondering how achievable is all this work going to be? And do you have any sense for that? Or is that something that should
No.
sort of get factored? You know, should we hear from any of the developers like Liaison and says, is this even feasible? I'm not coming back into Berlin and building another one because it's too expensive to build here or something like that. Because the state can ask all they want, but if we can't get developers to come in, which would mean we'd have to incentivize them a lot more from a town perspective. So that's a different animal that we have to address versus just thinking, you know, they will come and build it if we ask them to.
So on our list of questions right now, potential questions for the developers, the builders, are questions exactly along those lines. I think we need to have an understanding. I mean, there are a number of 830G projects that have been approved across the state that have never been built, right? And why does that happen? But we need to know, you know, what are the existing challenges from their perspective? What have their past experiences been? You know, what are the current market indicators? You know, what do they anticipate? You know, the people that are being invited are, you know, people that have experience of building successful projects that they've been able to fill. You know, we also know, you know, from talking to folks from other towns and you know, participating in other public meetings and whatnot, that there are affordable units that are not getting filled. And, you know, it's important that we hear from them, you know, if they're not only doing the developing and the building, but they're also doing the marketing and involved with, you know, the submittals to get people qualified and whatnot. It would be helpful to hear from those folks directly, right, about the issues that they're encountering. And, you know, I don't, it's hard to know ultimately where things are going, I think, because of the market changes that we've experienced. And, you know, that's my personal opinion. But they're in the best position to tell us.
It would be interesting to understand, and I don't know if anybody in the town employees like Maureen or whatever has a sense for what's going on, but you know, there were two developments that started off gung-ho. The one behind the Acura dealership, which was already supposed to be built by the end of fall of 2020, I think the original date was, or whatever. And they haven't even turned a shovel. And again, the other one is the workforce housing one over on by Eversource. So like, you know, is something going on that we might want to know about?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben Tripp represents Metro, and he's doing the one on Deming Road. So I can tell you basically that they, you know, well, first of all, a lot of the affordable units require government assistance to make the numbers work. And, you know, Ben and Metro have a lot of experience in that. So he can, you know, enlighten us and you can ask him questions. But in terms of the status of their project, you may have seen that they got some bond commission money approved in December for their project from the Department of Housing, and they're on. Ben tells me they're going to be on the CHFA board meeting for probably January 27th, the day after our meeting, and we're hoping that that's the final. We're hoping that that's the final approval for them, and they'll be able to start construction in the spring.
Great.
So,
Look like they were going to have to go cut down trees again.
All right. No, it's like, you know, again, you have some, like a Metro obviously has a lot of projects in Berlin and elsewhere. So they have a lot of experience. It's really a specialty for developers. And, you know, then like, you know, Mr. Diadio, he's not, you know, he doesn't have a lot of experience in this. So he's going to have to, you know, navigate his way through the financing. And other projects like Mr. Orsini's and the Acura dealership. He's, you know, he's doing market rate units. He has experience in other towns. You know, maybe it's a timing thing with John. But Metro obviously is I can tell you, obviously is going forward and building the first 16 units. And we met with them as recently as yesterday about the timing for the 60 units building at 55 Steel Boulevard, and they want to get under construction in the spring. So they're still gung ho and moving forward. I just as an anecdote, it was interesting. When we did the RFP for the town properties, where Steel Boulevard is now, we had a number of developers submitting proposals, and some of these developers really do a lot of those, government assisted units. And we looked at, it was interesting to see the difference in what the projected total cost of the project was for a similar number of units that they were going to construct versus Newport doing, private market rate units was much, much lower cost of construction. And, they're all market rate units and they're making the numbers work. So yes, it's not easy, but, some developers have found the formula to get it done.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody else have any questions for Jennifer or Jim? Anybody on the Zoom? Okay, anything else, Jennifer?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, so are we, with regard to presentation, we're good for agenda item 6 then? Moving on to 7, we did have a slot here for public comment. I don't know if we have anybody out there. I know Tim Grady was there for a while, but I think he's gone.
Yes, he is.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Okay. Robert Dombrowski, second.
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 A second.
Seconds, Tracy and Tracy. Okay. Any comments or concerns? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer and Jim, for all that information. It was very insightful for me anyway, so I hope everybody else it was too.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer, you'll send along that presentation,
Yes.
right?
I'm gonna send the presentation as well as the regs too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And it
our
is
next meeting is
7:08
next
PM.
Wednesday, correct? I think we're here too, so. Okay,
Right.
thank you, everybody.
Good night.